That's a big fish.
I don't know.
Thank you.
All right, is it clear? All right, all right, you all hear? That's really hard to hear. No. No, it's right. All right, so we're just going to have to speak really loudly. Can you all hear back there at all? No? All right. All right, is this any better?
Yes.
Oh, good, okay. All right, so welcome everyone. Good morning. Our invocation this morning will be from Cheryl, so she's going to hobble up.
Everybody, if you'd bow your heads. Dear Lord, that you would bless us, that you would keep us in your hand, that you would keep us from evil, and in the words of Maya Angelou, that you would allow us to be the rainbow in other people's clouds, so that we too, when we have cloudy days and things aren't going well, will experience wonderful rainbows. If y'all would stand for the pledge. Thank you. It's over you. I'll
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of the things we think, say, and do,
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
every moment, do not break your leg chasing your daughter's dog.
All right, that's your wisdom for the day. Sergeant at Arms report.
All right, good morning. We have two visiting Rotarians. We've got Carl Ashby from Greensboro. We have Deborah Friedman from Summit. And I guess we have Dabney Sanders, our guest speaker.
So birthdays and anniversaries. Dorothy this morning.
Okay, I'll try to get them right this time. I'm getting a second chance. Excuse me. Okay, birthdays. We have Bobby Christensen on the 17th of September. And then Dorothy Downey on the 16th of September. That's me for anybody who doesn't know. Partner birthdays is Stephanie Justice, and that's on the 14th of September. Member anniversaries. Jack Reynolds has 30 years and a total of 40 years?
40 years, Jack.
How many?
Your anniversary?
So 10 years at this club and what, 40 years altogether?
Is that true? Wow, that's, yeah, wonderful. And then wedding anniversaries, Blake Hunt and Lynn on 9/13, 17 years. All right.
All right, so before we start all the announcements, I did want to recognize that today is September 11th, and did want to have us really think about where we were September 11th, 2001, and pause for a moment of silence, if we would. Thank you very much. It's important that we remember how it impacted our country and the victims and the families. All right, so announcements. So fundraiser.
You betcha. If anybody has an inkling of sponsoring, we are about $8,000 short of our sponsor goal. So, 2 platinum sponsors, we're good, or 10 silver sponsors and we're good. If you'd see Cheryl or I after the meeting, we'll give you the form. All we need to know is that, yes, I'm willing to do it. We'll worry about the paperwork later. We have to give O. Henry a head count here next week. So if you're working on somebody or if you're going to do it, just please see Cheryl or I afterwards so we can get the right head count and we'll work it all out later. We're that close. 10 more bottom end sponsors. Right.
All right, so Steve, you want to talk about Big Sweep and Project Rebuild?
Yes, I will. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I'll try to speak really loud. But you saw this week's email went out from Sergeant Genius regarding Big Sweep. It's actually coming up not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. We're going to be meeting at the Carolyn Allen Park over by Crowell Middle School, New Gardens, and the other road. And basically, we're going to be, our location is just right there around the park, at the middle school, that whole area is going to be our location, so it should be nice and easy. I've already got one pickup, I think Howard's here. I'm not sure if Howard's here, but I think he already signed up for a pickup. We will need probably at least one more just to be safe, because I have no idea what's back there, and so if we have maybe another pickup, that would be very helpful. But it's going to be an easy time. 9 o'clock in the morning is when we'll meet, and then 12 o'clock is when lunch is cut off. So we'll probably be done around 11 or so. Get over there, drop off. There's pizza and drinks over at the drop-off site, and hope everybody can show up for that. 2 weekends after that, October 3rd, is the next Project Rebuild. So on your table, I do have our house that we will be doing the roof and just some small repairs, water damage on the inside. I think it's in the bathroom. I have not gone and seen the house yet. We're still scheduling that for next week, but it should be a very straightforward project. Like I said last week, this year we actually have a lift for the shingles. So not only is it a very easy roof anyways, but with that lift, it's going to make it tremendously a lot easier, and everybody will have a chance to push the button on the lift if you really want to. But our goal is to please everybody show up that first weekend, the 3rd and the 4th, and we can knock it out that weekend, and next weekend we're free for pig stock. All right, that's it for now. Plenty of more to come later. Thank you.
All right, did you want to say anything about pig stock? We should be selling tickets, right?
I get up more than Catholic Church. Yeah, pig stock. There'll be a sign up going around. It'll be a sign up genius. We'll take care of that next week. You'll see an email about that. But it's the 11th. The other clubs are really super excited about this. So we truly want a great Gate City turnout because we're expecting. I think we had 200 last year. We're cooking for 500 this year. It'll be a big day.
Excellent, and our Gate City team has our first warm-up cook-off this Sunday at Chip's house. So if you're on the team, or even if you're not on the team yet, come on out to Chip's house on Sunday. We'll be cooking some barbecue. Really just an FYI, the district training sessions are coming up, so Cheryl and I are headed out there this weekend. Membership, foundation, social media is what it's focused on. Dan's going next week. Any other announcements anyone wants to say?
Raffle tickets.
Sure.
All right, guys, raffle tickets. You guys selling them? Yeah.
You want to buy
It's
one?
awful quiet. What happened back there? Y'all selling any?
I just got it.
What, you sold one?
Darlene, you guys back there, y'all selling any raffle tickets?
I just got mine this morning.
Okay. So you sold all yours? All right, when you sell them, turn them in. Even if you only sell a ticket at a time, bring them to the meeting and turn them in because we really want to announce our progress. Based on last week's sales, we have sold 105 of the 1,500 at this point. Sounds like we've sold a little bit more. Let's get them in. As far as where we are in the contest, just as a reminder, some of you may not have heard about it if you weren't here. I'm getting an iPad Mini, and I have to look at it. I think if it looks like that new iPhone 6 Plus may be about the same size as an iPhone Mini, so I may give or an iPad Mini. So I may give people the option on which one you want if you're able to win the contest. Right now, I've got 2 tied at second place. Chuck and Jack have all sold. They've sold their 15 tickets. This guy over here, Dan Quinn, he has sold 40 tickets at this point already. So he's trying to win. And I had a little bit of an epiphany on how to sell some of these. guys, you don't have to sell them by yourself. Of course, I just give mine to my wife Stephanie, and she sells them all, no problem. And she's in real estate, sees a ton of people, and she's just a master of sales, so that works for me. But my kids have been bringing all these fundraisers home. So dangle the carrot to your kids. If you have school-age children, or even kids in college, say, hey guys, get out there and sell these things for me, and you can win an iPad mini. I don't care who sells them. Employ those guys and just get an army of people out there. We only have 1,500 to sell, and I think we can do it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so Happy Dollars, Buster.
All right, Happy Dollars. Y'all missed me last week?
You weren't here?
I'll give you a happy dollar.
I'm gonna sit down.
At least you got somebody.
All right.
Why don't we get that?
Happy dollars. I just returned from vacation. As good Carolina folks, we went to the beach, but made one mistake. We went to the wrong beach. We went to the Galapagos Islands. Did a 8-day program that was called Darwin's Footprints. Kept us very busy, very exciting, very interesting. So we had a great time. By coincidence, it was also our anniversary. Had nothing really to do with it. 29th year. So we had a wonderful time. I forgot all about it because I'm back at work.
Like Galapagos, that's south of Myrtle Beach. Near Myrtle. I knew it was near Myrtle.
3 miles.
Yeah.
I have, if anybody wants to go to Airport's fundraiser tomorrow night, I'm playing golf with some guys for their event, but I have 3 tickets for the nighttime event left over. So see me afterwards, first come, first serve. It's a good party. It's very similar to ours, so you can go kibitz ideas. Plus you may charge me too. Yesterday I had, not my favorite day, it was kind of a tough day, and I was in a motorcycle shop and overheard a conversation with a guy, and he was in a lot of pain. He was obviously severely disabled, and when I just jumped in and asked him about his injury, he was a disabled vet, and I gave him everything I know about service disabled vet contracting with the federal government, which took about 3 minutes. Anyway, he called me up last night and said it really gave him hope, and so it was just it made my day. That was my happy dollar.
All right, just happy to be back after my travels. So it was a real pleasure to get to spend my birthday delivering a women's leadership program in India to 17 high potential women there. So the program had a lot of impact on them. Hopefully will, over the course of their career, really help them with their leadership. So I was just thrilled to be able to do that.
Well, Grandpappy Lewis always said, opinions are like a certain body orifice, in that everybody has one. Said, but unlike same said body orifices, yours should be examined thoroughly and often.
All right, so after that, Andy, after the singer, follow that.
Good morning, everybody. Before I introduce Dabney, I want to say she comes from a family of service. Her father, you guys probably Porter. Can you hear me back there? No. Yeah, football. I'm sorry. Wall. Anything else?
I'm not sure everybody's here that won, but we'll go through it anyway. Brian, I haven't seen Brian come in. Brian Kaiser? Did he come in? Well, he has a new baby. So I think that he's probably watching football all day Saturday and then snapping all day Sunday. He got almost all the colleges correct and 2 out of 8 or whatever the pros. So he got the 0 award. And he's not here to collect it. But sometimes winner Blake round. Blake didn't make it either. He was second to last. Okay. You know what? Dad gonna be named after him anyway, might as well, yeah, Rob. You got 0. Okay, I think that actually he would miss it if he didn't get it.
Mess up his whole day.
Thanks to everybody for answering the call for prizes. That was a great turnout. We've got a lot of prizes now, and first prize this week, donated by Danny, is this really cool little mini cooler, and inside is a golf towel that you can wipe off your clubs or your balls or whatever it is you need to wipe off. Yeah. Anyway, first place, the winner this week, Howard. Are you here? I don't think so. 19. Well, good thing we finished off. Second place was a tie between Hal and Mike Allen.
I haven't seen Hal.
Where's everybody?
There's only one person left in the whole club. There's Mike.
Mike's over there. Mike, congratulations. You win by default. He's gonna take cooler, towels. They have all kinds of great prizes. Thanks, you guys. There's James donating. I know that I've had many as a great prize, but James is donating a new Lexus ISF to the grant. So you guys hang in there, fill them out, and we'll pick them up.
All right, we'll try this again. I will try to speak up. As I was saying, Dabney comes from a family of service. You guys, her father, Porter Halliburton, has been here to speak. He was in the Hanoi Hilton for 7.5 years, and not the good one that I get to stay in. Dabney's mom has served on the board with COV for me. Dabney's husband is a member of the Greensboro Club. So this is a family of service. As I read Dabney's resume. Dabney currently works as the project manager for the Downtown Greenway, a collaborative project of Action Greensboro and the City of Greensboro. Action Greensboro is a nonprofit organization of foundations dedicated to projects that enhance business recruitment efforts and community vitality to Greensboro. As project manager of the Downtown Greenway, Dabney oversees and coordinates all activities related to the creation of the $26 million 4-mile loop, including design, fundraising, construction, and communications. Dabney grew up in Rhode Island and came south to attend the University of the South. She graduated with a major in natural resources and a minor in botany in 1987. After leaving Charlotte and working at Wing Haven, a public garden and bird sanctuary, she moved to Greensboro in the fall of 1999 with her husband Walter when he joined the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro as its president. In addition to her work, Dabney is involved in a number of volunteer activities. Currently, Dabney serves on the Triad Stage Board of Trustees, the Board of Green Hill, and is on the Public Art Advisory Committee for the Piedmont Triad International Airport. She is a member of the core committee of the Edible Schoolyard and was a member of the Edible Schoolyard Advisory Committee at the Children's Museum and chaired a fundraising event related to Alice Waters' visit to the garden in the fall of 2009 and an urban chicken coop tour in the summer of 2013. She also served on the program committee for the Greensboro Symphony Orchestra and on a special joint committee appointed by the Greensboro Symphony to consider collaborative opportunities with the Winston-Salem Symphony. She has recently joined the board of the Olia, an educational glass-blowing studio focused on entrepreneurship in Winston-Salem. She is a former member of the Eastern Music Festival Board, the Witherspoon Art Museum, and is a former president of the board of Green Hill Center for North Carolina Art. Dabney enjoys living in Greensboro and Fisher Park with her husband Walker, their Bernese Mountain Dog Hudson, and their chickens Eloise and Trixie. I had a Berner, the greatest dog ever. So please welcome Dabney.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me in the back? Great. Do we have a remote or a clicker for the laptop? We probably don't. Does somebody mind? It'd just be easier if somebody could advance. There's for me. Well, I'm really glad to be here. I think I've spoken to this club a couple of years ago, and as an editorial in the paper recently said, the slow but steady progress on the Downtown Greenway. So it is a slow process, complicated process, but really exciting for the city. And so I just want to give a quick update on kind of where we've been and where we're going. So I think we'll hop through. I'll just kind of nod. So this Downtown Greenway is a collaborative project between Action Greensboro and the City of Greensboro. It really came out of a master plan that was commissioned for Greensboro in 2001. The idea was looking at some sort of physical things that we could do to continue the revitalization of downtown Greensboro. It was sort of on the forefront of that. Two of those projects got started immediately. The development of Center City Park, which was opened in 2006, and the movement of the baseball stadium downtown. Both of those projects happened 100% with private money. There really was not public money in those projects other than a little bit of sidewalk improvement for Center City Park. This Greenway idea was conceived as a way that we could really not only define our center city, but a way that we could actually expand people's perceived footprint of downtown. And if you think about downtown Greensboro, we have a lot of activity along Elm Street, north and south, and a few blocks east and west. But if you get a few blocks beyond that, we had a lot of surface parking lots, empty buildings, lots of opportunity for development. And we knew that greenways were a way to bring that development to a community. So that's one of the reasons we're doing that. So one of the exciting things about this Downtown Greenway is that it really serves as the central hub for the entire greenways and trail system in Greensboro, which you can see on this map here. The Downtown Greenway is that dark green oval in the center of the map, and you can see all the extensions out of paved trails, both planned and existing trails, signed bicycle routes. Greensboro is nationally recognized for its parks and recreation system, but when you got into town in the urban environment, we had sort of a lack of connectivity there, and so that's one of the things that the Downtown Greenway does, is connect all of that together. So I want to zero in on the Downtown Greenway itself. It is ultimately will be a 4-mile paved trail. Our standard is a 12-foot wide path. We have a 2-foot clear shoulder for safety on either side of that. And then depending on the circumstances, we have hopefully a minimum of 5 feet on either side of that that allows us to put site furnishings and lighting and signage and those sorts of things. And you'll see some examples of that as we move forward. So you can see the circle on this slide in the what would be the southwest corner, kind of the lower left corner there. That's a half-mile section that is open today, and I thought I would just run you through visually that section and then talk about what's to come. So we'll get started on that walk through there. This is one of our bicycle racks at the first section we've built called 5 Points. It runs between South Eugene Street along what at one point was probably an extension of Bragg Street. For many years it was the home of the J.C. Price School. Greensboro College owned that property for a short period of time, and then now the Grove Apartments. If you're coming into downtown from Freeman Mill Road, you may have noticed a big housing apartment complex under construction that just opened in August is now on that site. The Downtown Greenway sort of hugs the northern part of that property right behind the businesses that front Lee Street there. This particular bike rack is called Recycle, made from recycled bicycle parts by local artist Eric Bierbauer. So this is a piece called Grounded Here. We work very closely with the neighborhoods in which the Greenway is going through to learn about the neighborhood's history, to get a sense from the community members what sort of vision they would like to project to folks using the Greenway in their neighborhood. And we learned of a really interesting history in the Warnersville neighborhood that we really wanted to honor with a piece called Grounded Here that you see here. This was done by artist Juan Logan, who you'll see in the next slide, who is a former professor of art at Chapel Hill. He now lives in Belmont outside of Charlotte. But this piece really commemorates the history of that Warnersville neighborhood. We have a number of public art pieces sort of scattered along the Greenway that mark interesting and important pieces of sometimes overlooked history. So this is how that area looks in the spring and summer. The Warnersville community had a very strong group of community members, a Women's Rose Society that was sort of the bedrock of that community, responsible for lots of good things that came out of that community, particularly in their heyday in the 40s and 50s. And so we've honored that with planting over 1,200 roses there. The environment looks a little different now because of the development that's come around that, but economic development is really one of the primary reasons that Action Greensboro is involved in this project, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We also have 12 benches that are created by North Carolina artists that will be along the downtown Greenway. These mark the neighborhoods in which they sit. So again, we do a community process of finding out from the neighborhoods a little bit about their history, the stories that they'd like to tell, and then we have an artist come in who is a part of that public process with the neighbors and creates a work. We have a public art selection panel that sort of oversees the selection of this public art piece. This particular one is called 5 Points and was designed by Gary Gresco out of Oriental, North Carolina. This is one of our 4 cornerstones. We have 4 major pieces of public art that mark the corners of the 4-mile loop, and those cornerstones represent citywide themes that are important in Greensboro's history. So this first one is called Motion, and it really looks at the role that the intersection of highways and railroads played in making Greensboro the community that it is today. It also looks at the forward movement of people's minds and the fact that we have 7 colleges and universities here, which is very unusual for a community of our size. We commissioned artist Brower Hatcher, who is from Providence, Rhode Island, to do this piece. It's called Gateway of the Open Book. You have probably seen it if you're driving along Lee Street. It's right there as Freeman Mill Road goes overhead on top of Lee Street. Brower did a collaboration with local artist Frank Russell. Some of you may know Frank's work. He used to own Art Monger's Gallery downtown, and he makes fish sculptures primarily out of recycled materials. Frank has done a lot of public workshops with kids, so we applied for some grant funding in order to have Frank be a part of this project. He worked with students from the Warnersville neighborhood and students who were at Jones Elementary School as well as Smith High School, and the students actually helped him envision what sorts of little mini sculptures could be embedded in this that would connotate that theme of motion. We'll go to the next slide. It's really incredible at night, so if you haven't driven by there at night, I would recommend it. That's on West Lee Street, where Freeman Mill Road goes overhead. So, as we move along, this is what we discovered in the early planning stages of this downtown Greenway. This is an old railroad underpass that, for those of you that have lived in Greensboro for a long time, it used to be the underpass that if you were driving north or south on either Cedar Street or Spring Street downtown, it would actually go underneath this underpass. When Freeman Mill Road was built in the mid-1970s, the need for that underpass sort of went away because people would just go on Freeman Mill, and Spring and Cedar no longer were throughway streets there. The city had sort of forgotten that this existed, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to cross the major North Carolina Railroad track there. We obviously couldn't do an at-grade crossing because of safety reasons and just the number of trains and the expanse there. And it was a real struggle. And then somebody in the city's Department of Transportation sort of remembered that they thought there was an underpass that existed. It had been so covered up and abandoned that we really could not find it. We had to have machetes and saws to get down in there. And this is what we discovered. So we'll go to the next slide. Let's go back one, if you can. So this was a part of the construction process. You can see Amtrak's train there. going overhead. And again, this is just on the east side of Freeman Mill Road, in between Lee Street and Spring Garden Street. It was quite a project. This is a section that we call Moorhead Park. And if we'll go to the next slide, you can see basically what it looks today. This was a couple of years ago, so it actually looks even better today. One of the exciting things, we knew that we had to improve this underpass. We needed to provide safety lighting there, but we also thought it was a really wonderful opportunity to put a public art project there. We applied for a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts and received $100,000 for them, which is a very prestigious grant. Most organizations don't receive funding from the NEA on their first try, so we were excited that we were able to present a project that was so compelling to them. If we go to the next slide, it involved doing some safety features with gates, which we'll see in a minute, but also some lighting. This is just a detail of that, so let's move on. So this is how that underpass that you saw earlier looks today. You can see the steel structures that sort of divided the north-south traffic at one point for cars. That's now what we use for the Greenway. And then on either side it had those pedestrian tunnels that as a pedestrian you would walk along the street there. For safety reasons, we felt like we wanted to close those tunnels off because this is in kind of an isolated area. We commissioned Jim Gallucci to actually do these iron gates that you see there on the sides, and he, as his inspiration, looked at the old the AT&T building that was built in 1928. It has really interesting Art Deco architecture on the facade of that. That was built the same year that this underpass was built in 1928. So that's the inspiration for that. And if we move to the next slide, this was a scene from our opening day. So you can see those LED lights that come through. They are timed with a motion sensor. So as you are moving through the tunnel there, you can actually control the patterning of the light. It has a sensor that when a train goes overhead and vibrates, the whole thing sort of goes crazy and has different lights. And so it's a fun thing to do. This was also on our opening day. You see Rocco Landesman, who at the time was the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts. Again, a huge treat that he chose in his busy schedule to celebrate our opening with us. He's there with Jim Gallucci in the hat, who did the ironwork, and Scott Richardson on the other side, who did the lighting work, with Chuck Cornelio from Lincoln Financial, who has been a big supporter of the Downtown Greenway, and Linda Carlisle, who at the time was the secretary of the Department of Cultural Resources for the state of North Carolina. So this is another one of our neighborhood benches. This is up near Spring Garden Street. It's called Inside Out, and was designed and fabricated by Ben Kastner and Toby Keaton, who are from Wilmington, North Carolina. We didn't have a neighborhood to talk to in this particular case. There was a lot of sort of abandoned land around us, and at one time the land had been a part of Governor John Motley Moorhead's estate, which was Blandwood. The property that surrounds Blandwood now is just a tiny, tiny piece of what that property originally was when he owned it. And Governor Moorhead believed in the importance of a rail system for a community's growth. When he was governor of North Carolina, which would have been in the, I think, mid-1880s-ish, maybe it was a little earlier than that, the railroad was actually slated to go through Asheboro, south of us. And as governor and being from Greensboro, he decided he wanted it to come through Greensboro. And at that point, you could do that sort of thing. So he had the railroad come through Greensboro. He actually had a piece of that line just touch the edge of his property there. So the artists in this case actually looked at Blandwood as sort of the neighborhood, and they found two pieces of furniture in Blandwood. They really looked at the Greenway as Greensboro's outdoor living room, and so recreated those pieces that you see here in steel and a very highly polished concrete. So that material that looks like fabric is actually concrete. The bench and the chair are really comfortable. It's sort of a conversation piece. The chair, if you'll see, it looks like it's sort of placed in the opposite way if you're going to have a conversation, but that's called a tobacco chair. And the top hinge of that, or the top part of that chair, you would sit in the chair facing the back, what we think of as the back of the chair. And then that top part was hinged. You would keep your smoking accoutrements in that chair, and then after dinner you'd go and smoke and chat in the parlor. So it's called a tobacco chair, and it is a replica of one in Glenwood. So we also had another opportunity to do a major improvement here. This is at Spring Garden Street and was going to be the site of our trailhead parking area. We knew it would be quite a visible entrance, and these concrete bridge structures that are holding up what was Freeman Mill Road and is now split off into Spring and Edgeworth just wasn't the sort of inviting look we were after for the downtown Greenway. So we'll go to the next slide. We commissioned a group called Primary Flight out of Miami. We received a grant from the North Carolina Arts Council to do this. This is a group of former graffiti artists who are now getting not only national attention but international attention for the work that they do. This had been an area that had received a lot of graffiti activity, and we had been reading that if you have good graffiti in an area, it tends to discourage tagging and the more sort of vandalism kind of graffiti that happens. So these guys came from Miami. They spent 3 weeks here. They lived and had all their meals at Elsewhere in downtown Greensboro and painted these brick structures over that period of time. They used a little piece of Greensboro's history as well in thinking about their design. So this is just another shot of that, and then we've got a detail of what they did. And one more. So it's really spectacular. As you drive through Spring Garden Street, it's hard not to miss, and we think it's a great way to introduce people to entice them to come to see Moorhead Park. We've got another bike rack coming up. This one is called Park. This was also done by local artist Eric Bierauer. So now we're going to talk about just the rest of this section. We've been talking about that half-mile section, L-shaped section in the southwest corner. As we continue along Bragg Street heading east, the rest of that section, we anticipate, we're just finishing up our design of that section. We hope to go under construction next year. For that, there's a lot of other exciting things that are happening in that area. The South Elm Development Group is working there. Union Square Campus, which you've probably read about and heard about, is happening in that area. We'll see in the future mixed use with residential and office space. It's being designed as a very pedestrian-friendly area, and so it's a great fit with the downtown Greenway. Union Square Campus really credits the downtown Greenway as one of the major reasons they selected that site to do that development. So we're going to move along to the east to phase 2 that you can see circled here. This is Murrow Boulevard. If you picture Murrow Boulevard today, it's sort of a highway that it's hard to figure out quite what its function is. It's a 6-lane divided highway, very inappropriate for a downtown facility. That was originally intended to be a vehicular loop around downtown. They built the east side. The city acquired some right-of-way to continue it, but never did. And so that's why it looks like it does today. We're taking, essentially, this is simplifying it, but we're taking 2 lanes of those 6 lanes of traffic out in order to put the downtown Greenway on the east side. So it'll be really transformative. If you think about that today, it's a very difficult place to walk or ride your bike, extremely unsafe. And we'll end up with a really nice facility for biking and walking, but it'll also continue to be very appropriate for the car traffic that goes through there. We are working on the design of that. We should have the complete design about mid-year next year. We're working really closely with the city right now on filling a funding gap to do that construction, but we hope we'll be starting that construction in 2016. All right, so now we're moving along to the northern side. This, as Murrow Boulevard comes up, it ends up turning into Fisher Avenue. So the phase 3 goes along Fisher Avenue to Eugene Street. And then it turns south along Eugene till it hits Smith. And then it heads west over to the railroad tracks on Smith Street. And there's a lot of activity in this section that we are really glad to be a part of. Deep Roots Market opened about a little over a year ago. It's the first grocery store that downtown Greensboro has had in over 30 years. It's a wonderful co-op market. We've had the Greenway at Fisher Park Apartments built. They are so successful, they're entering into their second phase. They're under construction now with that section called Greenway at Stadium Park. You may have recently read about Andy Zimmerman's new development, the old Steel and Vaughn property on that same corner. He's putting in a brewery and crafted restaurant is opening there. And we also have some activity on what used to be the city-county gas station that was cleaned up and has been kind of an empty site for the last couple of years. But we've got a development group interested in doing office space there. So lots and lots of activity there. We are planning on putting that section out to bid. Hopefully the end of this month. We're using some federal funding for that section, and so we have to work with NCDOT and get their construction approval. It's sort of another level of approval there. We hope that's coming mid this month and actually next week. And if we get that next week, we'll put that out to bid and be ready to start construction on that right after the first of the year. So within that northern section, when Greenway and Fisher Park Apartments, which you see here in this photo, were being built, they approached us about expediting and building that 2-block section of the Greenway while they were under construction, which we were able to do. We have put in that section what we're calling eco gardens. This is Greensboro's very first roadside innovative stormwater treatment facilities. And I'm trying to think if I've got I don't have, this is the only slide I have of this, but if you can, it's a little hard to see, but where you see those trees planted, those are tree wells that the soil is actually inset about 12 inches lower than grade level of the sidewalk and the street. So what happens is if we have a rain event, the stormwater will, from the street and the sidewalk, will funnel in. We have curb cuts there, so it funnels in. We have a special structural soil in there, as well as a plant selection that begins a biological process of treating that water. So it begins some treatment before it actually ever ends up into the stormwater system. We were excited to pilot this project. We've been trying to pilot some things for the city that we think are good practices, but maybe something the city wouldn't feel comfortable just doing on their own. And we feel like that's a real role that the private sector is playing in this. So I hope we'll see a lot more of these. The facilities are beautiful to look at. It's a lot prettier than just seeing a little strip of grass, but it's also nice knowing it has that added sustainability benefit. So we'll go to the next one. We're getting towards the end here. This is the last piece that we officially opened. This is the second of those 4 cornerstones I mentioned. This particular theme is called Tradition. It's in the northwest corner, so it's kind of looking up towards the Battle of Guilford Courthouse and recognizing the role that Greensboro played in the Revolutionary War. Artist Mags Harries and Lyosh Hader, who are from Cambridge, Massachusetts, were commissioned to design this piece. And it's really a lovely piece with this sort of tent-like structure that's reminiscent of thinking about the troops in their tents during that time period, surrounded by an orchard and a garden. So if we'll go to the next slide. This is interesting. We really wanted to honor the history of that, but maybe in not so traditional of a way. This is the roof structure there, and it actually has snippets of phrases of letters that General Greene wrote to George Washington when he was in battle here, just talking about the conditions that his men were going through, the landscape they were passing through. And if we go to the next slide, you can see that as the sun hits this roof structure, the casting of that, you can actually read the words that were written on the ground. So we had a great opening. You can move on. We had a great opening in May of this year. The ribbon cutting, and I'm just going to show you a few scenes from that. So this is Charlie Headington. Some of you may know Charlie. He's very involved in the school garden culture here, permaculture gardening. He designed the orchard. Again, it's Greensboro's first public orchard, so we're encouraging people to enjoy it and use it and pick a little something. But here's Charlie talking about his activities that day. We had a variety of other activities. We had over, it was National Bike Month in May. We encouraged folks to ride their bikes. We had over 65 people that came by bike. Of course, had food trucks and activities for children and dogs, and we hope that sort of tradition will continue on this site. Here's the site again with people just enjoying it. I can't remember if I said it's called Meeting Place. We'll do another shot of that. Beautiful. The permaculture orchard is really incredible, and of course it's been planted so that we can maintain it organically. The plant selection actually helps to work on the health of the orchard trees, keeping disease and insects away. This piece also is really spectacular at night, and it's right there at the corner of Smith Street and the railroad track and Prescott Street. So if you are coming into downtown Greensboro from Battleground, there was an old gas station. I should have done a before picture of that because it's pretty striking. An old gas station and convenience store called Masa Mart that was there for many, many years. So that really leaves us with the next section. This is phase 4, our final section on the western side. That western side is a railroad track. It's an active line right now that Chandler Concrete uses. Their facility is based a little further north on Mill Street. From the beginning, we recognized that that was one of our major opportunities. With only one commercial user on the line, we felt that it was possible to have that line be abandoned. We have been having conversations with Chandler Concrete and with Norfolk Southern for about the last 10 or 12 years. We're feeling good about those conversations, and we hope we'll have some future news about that. When Chandler Concrete no longer uses that rail service, our understanding is from Norfolk Southern that they'll abandon that line and we will turn that railroad track line into this western leg of the downtown Greenway. So I've just got a couple more slides. I want to talk a minute about funding because I think that's important. This is a $30 million project that includes, of course, the Greenway itself, all of the road and safety improvements. I would say the road improvements related to this project are probably the largest budget item we have, but it also includes our program of public art, as well as the site furnishings and the education and communications program, and the fact that we've been at this since for about 10 years now, not all of that as intently as we are now. I mentioned this is a public-private partnership. The private sector has raised a little over $8.5 million for this. Lots of that from corporations, foundations, individuals. We have really been focusing on major gifts at this point. We had a goal of raising $2.5 million in a major gifts campaign, which we've just about completed. Probably in the next year or two, we will do some sort of community campaign that gives folks an opportunity to give at lower levels, because this really is Greensboro's downtown Greenway. There was a great article, I don't know if any of you ever read City Beat magazine, which is a new sort of independent weekly. Jordan Green wrote a really nice article about what an equal opportunity facility this downtown Greenway is. It really crosses economic lines and racial lines and really offers something for everybody, whether you're interested in going out for a run or a stroll or meeting neighbors or learning a little more about the community, as well as all of the things that it's doing from an economic development standpoint. So I've been talking about this economic development piece, and you've got a handout that you're welcome to take if you're interested, that has this map of developments that have come along the downtown Greenway. These are only developments that really cite the downtown Greenway as a reason for them wanting to develop there. You know, we'd love to take credit for the $65 million Performing Arts Center. It's a couple of blocks away, but we can't do that. So I think this is really significant. When we started this project, we knew that greenways all over the country were bringing economic development to their communities, and we saw no reason that it would not happen here. And it's really nice to actually have some data that backs that up. So we've spent about $6.5 million to date on this project. We have already seen over $200 million in economic development that cites the Greenway as a part of their reason for developing. And as you can see from this map, we've got lots of future opportunities for development as we continue the progress of this, and I think that's a really key point. So that's the sort of the downtown Greenway in a nutshell, and I don't know if we have time for questions, but if we do, I'd be happy to. Ashley?
Placards or some sort of information at the various art sites so that people are going around the Greenway, they can look at art things that you're telling us about those art pieces?
Yes, each of the art pieces does have a plaque that recognizes the artist, if we've had a donor for that, and gives a little bit of history. For instance, the Inside Out plaque kind of gives you a little synopsis of what I told you, but then directs people to go to Blandwood for more information. Yeah. Great, well, thank you so much for having me today.
Pick a ticket here and read the last three numbers. 193.
193.
Rotary wins again.
All right.